So, good day. We're learning Manachochem, Igeres Beis, page Kuf Zayin. Now, just for you Chevra to know that this year is not just us local viewers and attendees, but Baruch Hashem, as I told you, other people are watching, listening, and even commenting. Yesterday, I got a very long comment on the YouTube from a dentist in Teaneck, New Jersey, who hopes to join us from time to time. He said, commenting on different things that we discussed, Rav Kook and the Rebbe Shita, Rabbi Yo's clarification. I don't think you were at that part of the Shir Moshe yesterday. You came a little late, but I spoke a little bit about that in the beginning. Because what you asked last week, which is very good that you brought it up, about, and you said, today's religious Zionists are different than the ones in the past, from the way back. And I said yes and no, and I discussed the Shabbos with some knowledgeable people in Shul, and they agreed to what I said, and that is that, yes, is that there's more of a religious Torah right-wing attitude, even by Mizrahi today, but no, and that they still hold on to the Aschalta de Geula, which that part of the Shir you were there for yesterday, that's Reishis Tzmichas Guloseinu, as they say in the Tefillah. And Rav Kook held that way too. Again, I'm not a bucky in his expert in his svarim, whether he actually made the tefillah or say, I don't think he did, or he should say the tefillah. I don't know. Could be he did, but in shita, in ideology, he was of that mindset. And Velvel is not here, but before the shir he left me an elaborate voice note asking me to talk for a few minutes about the 1948 United Nations announcement and decision that the state of Israel, Palestine now is the state of Israel. And he said that, where he is in Cologne, Germany, he's always confronted by people who are Orthodox and frum, and, that there is some form of geula because the miracle of 48 points to that. And along with that comes Yom Ha'atzmaut and the saying of Hallel, the different aspects. So he asked me to address that briefly. I'm just going to say one or two things. Number one, who says that 1948 was a miracle? Who says it was a miracle? It was great negotiations. Could you prove to me it was a miracle? No one can prove it was a miracle. You could say they negotiated very well, and Hashem blessed them. What I'm saying is, what's the miracle? You're struggling, you're negotiating, 20, 30 years from the British mandate, you're maneuvering, you clinch the deal. So what is a miracle? What means a miracle? In other words, this is my own humble opinion, is that I could question and conclude that it's not a miracle. It's a good thing, but who says it's a miracle? That's number one. Number two, the fact is that this state that was formed in 48 did not include that it's a state based on halacha, Yiddishkeit, Torah, mitzvahs. So how can you argue that redemption has begun because the state of Israel and the state goes against redemption, i.e. it goes against the Torah? It's an oxymoron. You can't, and that's also part of what Rabbi Yoel is writing in different words and different arguments in different places in this letter is you can't have it both. If you're saying it's Geula, which yesterday we learned and today we'll continue, it's not up to us to say Geula, it's up to God to say it's Geula. But even if you want to argue that we can make a Geula, a beginning of Geula, how could that be Geula if you're eating treif and raising pigs and saying buses should go on Shabbos? It doesn't go together. So the statehood did not create Geula. On the contrary, the statehood created desecration of Torah. Rahman litzlan. Simultaneously, we're very happy that there was a 1948 and there was a state and we can live in Eretz Yisrael. We can go back to the Kaisel until, and all that. Absolutely. But don't tell me it's Geula. So this is the answer to the objection that Velvel shared from his people there, and it's all over, it's not just there, is that 1948 is not Geula, and it's not necessarily even a miracle. What miracle? The 1967 war, the 6-day war, the Rebbe said it was a miracle. Guess what? The Satmar Rebbe said it wasn't a miracle. Even that, which not just the Rebbe said, almost everyone said it was miraculous, that in 6 days we should defeat all of our enemies, that has more miracle tone to it. Okay? One second. But 1948, what's the miracle over here? Now, if any of you can explain what the miracle of 1948, miracle, we're talking about Ness, not great thing, not good thing, miracle, Ness. So that's my rebuttal to the argument, Velvel, that miracle, that what happened in 48, albeit a good thing, that we have liberation or somehow, we have a state, and then we have a homeland and all that to live in and to conduct ourselves, it doesn't equal a miracle. So I hope that suffices for now. Wait, Yaini, Moshe, and then you, Yaini, yeah?
I just want to mention, I know that, I remember learning about this years ago, that there's I think that even with, there's a difference between, like, as you brought up, 1948, what happened in 1948, and what happened in 1967. I think that 1967, what's interesting is that those who say Hallel on Yom Ha'atzmaut or Yom Yerushalayim, the ones who are more halachic, they say there's much more of a basis to say Hallel. I'm just sharing much more of a basis to say Hallel, potentially, even with a bracha, because of what happened in 1967. Meaning 1967 was a real, you could say, maybe it was a real nace.
Yeah.
Especially because let's say there was an element of finishing. There's an element of let's say there's a military. There was a military issue, and it completed. There was essentially almost, we'll say, like a victory or a positive outcome, and so celebration of that in 1967. I think amongst those again who say Hallel, make a bracha, etc., not to make a bracha, there's a tremendous amount of a difference of opinion between 1948 and 1967. Just wanted to share that.
Thank you, Yoni.
So I'll tell you a story that I heard when I was at maybe 13, 14, something like that. I don't know if you know, maybe in all your teachings, it could be in one of your books, maybe you mentioned, his name is Rabbi Tuvia Besser. I don't know if you know, his son is a rabbi, is I think either the Rosh Yeshiva or the Dean of Manhattan, I think Manhattan High School, like a modern Orthodox school, but that's his son. He's a rabbi, very interesting guy. His father was an American who went in 48 to Palestine to fight, and he was my father's boss. So I remember when I was a little kid, my father would take me to work every Friday. I didn't go to school on Fridays. And he would take me to Shmulka Bernstein's, and he would take me to the shop. And his shop was on 47th Street. He used to work in the Diamond District. And so Tuvia Besser was Rabbi Besser. He was his boss. And they used to make gold chains. That was the business. My father was in the business for many years. And so he told me a story. He told my father, and I was there, and because we were talking about Israel, this and that. And I didn't know anything about Israel. I was in Chaim Berlin at the time. I had no idea. And he seemed like a Haredi guy, so I didn't, think, he knew anything about Israel. He had a white beard and a black yarmulke. And he said, no, I fought in 48, and I went and I volunteered. And he said that he doesn't have any citizenship. At that time, he wasn't Israeli, he wasn't living there, he doesn't have Israeli citizenship then. Also, story many years ago, at least 30 years ago. He passed away. But he said, an interesting thing, he said that when he came to fight and to defend Israel, so he said they were so outgunned and so out everything. They had no machinery, they had no guns, they were literally like fighting with sticks and bows and arrows. They didn't have anything. And the world wasn't giving them money, and they really didn't have a lot. So what they did was they were inventive. They were inventive and innovative, and they built, and he said he was part of this. He didn't tell me a story for something else. This is what he did. He was in a tank battalion, and they had a few tanks. And he said that they didn't have even materials to make tanks from. So what they did was, and this is what he said was the miracle. He says they took aluminum, like from all different parts, like parts from trucks and parts of everything, gutters, and they built these things that kind of looked like somewhat like a tank, but it obviously didn't have wheels, and they couldn't master it. They didn't have the same machinery that they have today that they can make things, and they constructed these things and they put them on mountains. Now these things are, if you're going from Beit Shemesh or Tel Aviv to Yerushalayim, you can still see them. They're actually like these red little, they look in a way like a truck or something.
Yeah, I see them on the road, no?
Yeah, so until I came to Israel.
In Latrun, I think, over there, yeah.
Yeah. So until I came to Israel, I didn't know what he was talking about. But he said that they put them on strategic places, mountains, and, in the Galil, the Golan. And he said that he was overlooking, and he was like, it was metal, so it was like protection. He said as soon as they put down these pieces of scrap metal, the Syrian army started running. He says, I'm looking through my binoculars, and I was literally shocked. He said, in my whole life, I never saw such a thing. I never saw such a thing. They just saw these pieces of metal, started running. And he said that it was a crazy, for him, it was a crazy miracle. And Mr. Nigla, whatever it was, but he told me, he said, that was a miracle. And I heard that story. And then when I first came to this, when I saw those pieces of metal, I'm like, wow. Like that's what hit me. So that's why we're talking about this.
Right. And that was in 48 or 67? 67.
No, 48. 48, because you're talking, this story happened in the 80s. He was already an old man then. So 67, he was already,
Right. One last point regarding what I said earlier, that after the 6-Day War, the next Pesach, the Rebbe wrote to his Hasidim Yerushalayim that on Erev Pesach they should leave Yerushalayim until after midday, because if not, they'll be obligated, according to Rabbeinu Yechiel mi Paris, Rabbi Rabbeinu Yechiel of Paris, who was I think a Rishon, who says that you have to bring a Korban Pesach. If you're in Yerushalayim and you have dominance, Erev Pesach, you have to bring a Korban Pesach. No, you have to bring it in the afternoon. But if you're not there, maybe he said you have to go away for all of Pesach. I don't remember, but the bottom line is they left. You can see the letters. Then the next year, the Rebbe said you could stay, because what he hoped would happen didn't happen. What did he hope? That the victory of the army would be that they would conquer and take over and have complete control, and they didn't. They gave it over to the Wakif, whatever it's called, and everything.
Waf.
Yeah, the Waf, and that's it. So to us, for us Lubavitchers, it was a clear indication that although a miracle happened on the first 6-day war, right? It kind of was wasted. The vessel that should have been made by the Israeli government was squandered, was wasted, and to the point where, and Rebbe said, you could remain out of Pesach in Yerushalayim. All I'm saying is, sharing this with you, is that it's we're flippant to saying there's a miracle. We have to again look into halacha and see what the getter of a miracle is, and then we have to see what the Rabbanim say and all that. Now, notwithstanding all that, we have a legitimate disagreement between those that see the 6-day war, as or the 48 and the 6-day war as miracles again. And therefore, Yom Ha'atzmaut and Hallel and Yom Yerushalayim, these are all nuances that different plugot, different kitot, different groups, as we know, believe and decide based on their rabbanim. But Reb Yoel, in this letter, he's presenting his understanding based on the Rebbe's understanding that the Aschalta de Geula, which the Mizrahi call, or Hachana leGeula, or Aschalta di Aschalta, which the Aguda called, is not the case. And now let's go to the page Kuf Zayin for one, just to learn one paragraph inside today, I guess. V'rayin Zeh, Kuf Zayin, this is the first paragraph on the page. V'rayin Zeh, this idea that it's either Aschalta di Geula or Aschalta di Aschalta, who Kfira Gemura's complete denial, Be'ikre Emunas HaGeula, in the primary foundational belief of redemption, Aydei Mashiach Tzidkenu. Why? Ki Yadua Mefursum, as is known and is publicized, V'chei Mevor Rambam Hilchos Balachim Perek Yudal Aleph. He says, look into the Rambam chapter Hilchos Balachim, the Laws of Kings, chapter 11. Quote: the Rambam says, "Shekol inyan haGeula, the entire process of Geula, Gam hascholas haGeula, including the beginning of Geula, v'gam aschalta daschalta v'chula, and even the second stage, which the Aguda calls, it's the beginning to the beginning, aschalta di aschalta, tia ach v'rak aydei Mashiach Tzidkenu, will be only through the righteous Mashiach. He will bring that about." Okay, Moshe here he addresses the religious Zionists, right? This argument that the religious Zionists say, and Rabbi Yoel writes in the parentheses, "Kein nitvas gam b'ha'itonim shel Aguda," and so he says you can find in the newspapers of the Aguda their position, and that is the Zeh Mashabo Harbe Yehudim Le'eretz HaKodesh Tizborech V'Sikarev B'Mheira V'Yameinu Amen. The fact that many Yidden made Aliyah and they came to Eretz HaKodesh, the Holy Land, may be close and to each and every one of us speedily. Meyartza Shoinish, and they came from all kinds of different countries. So they argue, who in your kibbutz golius? This is what the Rambam means, the ingathering of the exiles. So Rabbi Yoel says, who kvira gemura? This is complete heresy. It's mamish contrary to what the Rambam writes, Sham, in the Laws of Kings. What does he write there? Shekibbutz golius, that the ingathering of the golius, of the exiles, tiyai de Mashiach Tzidkenu, will be through Mashiach, la'achrei binya Beis HaMikdash, after the building of the Beis HaMikdash. And no Zionist, whether it's Herzl or Rav Kook or anyone else, will tell you that the Beis HaMikdash is standing on the Har HaBayis. No one's going to tell you that, right? Everyone agrees there's no Beis HaMikdash. Everyone is still celebrating, anyone that's religious and believes, Tisha B'Av. So Rabbi Yoel says, if that's the case, the Rambam writes that that first Mashiach first there'll be the building the Beis HaMikdash, and Mr. Mashiach will then gather the Jews from all over. So how can you tell me the fact that they're making Aliyah is part of Geula when Geula didn't start because we don't have a Beis HaMikdash yet? According to the Rambam. Again, remember what I said yesterday. According to the Rambam as the final authority. If you don't accept that the Rambam is the final authority, which many didn't, and maybe Rav Kook didn't either, I don't know, I'm not well versed, seemingly he didn't, as the final authority on these laws, then you could say the Medrash says this, and according to the Medrash, Moshe, you don't need to have the building of the Beis HaMikdash before the ingathering of Gola. So therefore in 67, and 48 and 67, when Jews made Aliyah and all that, it's part of the Geula. That's their argument. But if you follow the Rambam, and the order of the Rambam, just text of the Rambam, not secrets of the Rambam, the actual simple text, he gives an order, 1, 2, 3, 4. And what does he say? That first there'll be Binyan Beis HaMikdash and then Kibbutz Goliath. So the fact that there was aliyahs and great aliyahs, great, wonderful, and it's gewaldic, but it does not equal Geula. And therefore, according to the Rambam, Rabbi Yoel's expression, which is very sharp, Kfira Gemuda, it's complete heresy. Because it's a very sharp expression, but think about it. If you accept the Rambam's opinion, then saying that Geula started, it's a contradiction to belief. To belief, the 13 Animamins. Right? Just as I believe Yoni in Hashem, and I believe in Tchias HaMesim, I believe in Mashiach. It's one of the Yud principles. And according to the Rambam, it didn't begin yet, because we don't have a Beis HaMikdash yet. And if you're telling me it did begin, then that means you're from the perspective of the Rambam, you're going against the belief in one of the principles, and that's heresy. In other words, if someone's going to say, Yonason, I don't believe in the resurrection of the dead, you will call that person a kafir, a heretic. He does, right? It's one of there's Yud Gimel Midos, Yud Gimel things, 13 principles of and they're Ikrim. They're called Yud Gimel Ikrim. And one of them is Tchias HaMesim. When someone will come along, I don't believe, he's a heretic, he's a kafir. So Rabbi Yoel says that the Rambam says the same thing about the process of Geula, and if you say otherwise, you're a kafir. That's the explanation to his words, Kfira Gemuda. We'll continue tomorrow. Try to come on time so we could learn more. Sei gesund. Have a great day, everyone. Take care. Take care. Bye-bye.